Good afternoon. So today we're working on my girlfriend's Subaru Subaru Forester. We're gonna replace the brake pads on her. Her brake pads are worn. Checked out the rotors; they look pretty good. So I'm just gonna do the brake pads this time. But as you can see, it's in the maintenance bay, ready to go. All right. So for today's job, what we're going to need is a ratchet, 14 millimeter wrench, 17 millimeter wrench, 14 millimeter socket, 17 millimeter socket, a breaker bar with a 19 millimeter socket for the lug nuts, the front brake pads, rear brake pads, brake and caliper grease, brake parts cleaner, and caliper piston compression tool. So we're gonna go through all of this. We may need more, we may need less, but this is a good start for doing the brakes on this car. So let's get to it. First thing we're gonna do is we're going to break loose all of the lug nuts for all 4 tires. So when I lift up the vehicle, I don't have to worry about that. All right, now that I got all 4 lug nuts broken free, all 5 lug nuts on all 4 tires, sorry. Now it's time to lift the vehicle. Now, just gonna use the socket and just remove the lug nuts. First things first. So there's these caliper bolts at the top and the bottom. I believe they are a 14. And we're just gonna break these loose. Oh, that's tightened. And before you fully take out one, you wanna break loose the second one as well. And you can see right here at the bottom where the wrench is, this bolt right here. You want to take these 2 out. say these, keep these in a nice location. Now at this point, you can remove the caliper. And you want to put this caliper in a location where you're not putting stress on the spring. I mean on the hose right here. You don't want to put stress on that. So since I'm not replacing the rotor, I would have normally like bungee corded or zip tied it up here somewhere. Today we're just replacing the pads. So right here, the pads are right here. There's one on each side of the rotor. You just want to pull and pull it out. And it'll pop right out. And see, there's still some meat on the pad, but girlfriend took her car to the dealership for a warranty, a recall, and they were saying the pads are low, and there's no way I'm going to pay the dealership a couple $100 to do something that literally takes a few minutes for each side. So I'm doing it myself. So we got that. All right, so what we need to do is compress these pistons right here. And there's a couple tricks we can do. One of the, since I only have a single piston compressor, we're going to take the old brake pad and we're going to use this piston compressor right here. And we'll just alternate sides. All right, the piston is compressed fully. Good to go. All right, just gonna put this back to where it's not falling. Make sure the shims that you're putting in are the same as the ones you're pulling out. So this one matches this one, but I'm gonna put a little bit of grease on the back of this. This prevents a little bit of that brake chatter and all that other annoyingness. Same thing with this one. Put a little bit of grease on it. Be careful, you don't want this grease on the rotor. You just want it on the back of If you happen to get any on the rotor, don't worry. Just use some brake parts cleaner. Perfect. And on the back of the pads, you want to put a grease all over the friction surface, just to make sure that, again, you don't get any squeaking or anything. Everyone hates squeaky pads. Make sure not to get it on the friction material. And then just slide the pad. All right. Kind of want to push it in. And same thing on this side. You want to grease it nice and good. So and all of this greasing does, it doesn't really affect brake performance, but what it does is eliminate all of that noise, and like if you hear brakes, you can just replace them, but they're still squeaking and stuff like that. This gets rid of all of that, prevents that from happening. To have a much quieter ride. All right, now we're gonna just replace the caliper. All right. And replace the bolt. There we go. And get the first one on as well, the bottom one. And you want to kind of get these started before you start wrenching away at them. The torque spec on these is 20 foot-pounds. So if you have a torque wrench, this is the perfect time to use it. If you don't, it's just pretty snug. This is your brake system, so I would highly recommend getting a torque wrench, especially if you wrench on your own cars, because it's going to come in handy. I forgot to add that to the initial tools, but a torque wrench is highly recommended. All right. Again, I said the torque spec is 20 foot-pounds. So we're at 20. All right. All right. 20. All right, not hard. Perfect. Side one was complete. As you can see, not too hard or complicated. Just take your time, make sure you have the right tools. All right, so now I'm gonna do a rear brake pad replacement, and then I'm gonna do the other side off camera because it's the same thing, just on the other side of the car. All right, welcome back. So now we're on the rear caliper, and we're gonna replace the rear brakes. So same thing as before, you want to loosen this nut for the top of the caliper and this nut for the bottom of the caliper. And again, it's just a 14 millimeter. Now, you just want to pull the caliper off. Should slide right off. And the same thing with this, you want to put the caliper somewhere to where it's not hanging. You don't want stress on this brake line at all. All right. You just want to pull out these brake pads. All right. You can see these are pretty close to worn as well, so good timing compared to the meat that was on these. Yeah, we definitely have some wear on these brakes. That's good though. Good thing we're doing it now. And like the front brakes, the rear brakes also came with brand new hardware, which is amazing. You can reuse this hardware, but if it comes with new hardware, I always recommend replacing it. And again, you want to make sure it's the same. Yep. back of it. What I've realized is going to make it a lot easier for putting the grease on is if you put the pad in first and then grease it while it's already in. Alrighty, boom. Get the pad in, and now we're gonna grease it. Just be careful not to get it on the rotor or the friction material, but all right. Then we're gonna do the same thing for the back side. Got it. And do the same thing. We're gonna grease this side as well. Again, take extra care not to get on the rotor or the friction material. This helps keep your bricks nice and quiet. Alright. Now, since this is just a single piston, really simple. We're going to do the same thing though. We're going to take an old brake pad, put it right here. And compress this piston. Nice and compressed. And now you want to put the caliper back on. You want to take special note to make sure that this line is not kinked in any way. And then we're just going to line these holes back up and re-clamp it down. Put the bolts back in and torque it back down to spec. And put the bottom one in. Alright. And just like the fronts, the torque spec is 20 foot-pounds. And we still have it set to 20 foot-pounds. So all right. And put it on the bottom one as well. $20 foot-pounds. All right. that's how you do the front and back brakes on a 2016 Subaru Forester. I'm pretty sure from 11 to 18 it's the same process. I don't think there's much of a difference between those years, so this will pretty much cover you from 2011 to 2018. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and then I'm gonna show you the last step you need to do before you actually try to take the car for a drive. So now that I've done the brakes on the other side, the last step we need to do is we need to pump the brakes just so to close the gap between the caliper and the brake pads. You remember when we compressed the pistons completely? Well, there's a slight gap between the calipers and the piston. I mean the piston and the brake pads. So it's pretty simple. What you want to do, you just want to pump the brakes until you feel good, solid pressure. All right, brakes feel solid. Pretty simple. That's the last step. All right, after this, you want to take it for a test drive. You want to take it on a nice, slow test drive through the neighborhood streets. That way, if anything happens, you're not going at highway speeds. But all right, thank you again. If you like my video, like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything else you want to see, just maintenance-wise on the vehicle, the Subaru is such a simple car to work on. It's such a great great vehicle to make this type of content on. But yeah, if you'd like to see anything else, please let me know in the comment section below.